Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? Please let me know, because I've had issues with this evening. So please comment if you can see me and you can hear me. Please let me know. As I said, I've had some issues with headphones, with microphones, all sorts this evening. So do let me know if you can see me and hear me. Hear me is most important. Yes, amazing. Okay, perfect. Right. In which case, let's get these slides up and let's get going. All right. So what I'm going to do, perfect, is I'm just going to set us up and let's have a look and then we'll be ready to go. Just please do, if people were watching on the other two videos, then do just send them this way so that they know where we're going. So we are back, we are going, and I'm just going to load up my slides. All right, amazing. Here we are, and we should just be able to share a screen as well. Amazing, someone's already got there on what they are looking to study at university, which is perfect, which is exactly what I wanted. So here we are, Chrome tab, slides, share. Okay. Right. There we are. Oh, I'm hoping that this is all going to load up and going to be fine. There we are. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Okay, so come over here, everybody, because this is where we are starting. And as someone has already started to do for me in that chat, I did see a number of the ones in past. So do just let me know what you are looking to study. There we are. Perfect. Everybody is starting to comment down what you or your child is looking to study. Perfect. So we've got some medicine in there. We've got some economics, some E&M, some PPE. Interesting. Okay, a couple of PPE. Do let me know, and I'll give us a couple of minutes just to make sure everybody is starting to get there. There we are. Perfect. We are all good. Oh, there's a math, zoology. Nice. Okay. Okay, brilliant. All right, so now that everybody has started, I'm going to plug us in and we should be able to, actually I'm not going to plug us in, I can speak, and we'll start. All right, so we are looking today at extracurriculars. And what I wanted to think about, that's a little bit about me, but when we start thinking about extracurriculars, we want to start thinking about the whole child and really where it is that their interests are, which is why I've asked you to put down what university courses you're looking at, because this is what's going to drive what becomes those important extracurriculars. So those important extracurriculars are all related to what you are putting down in the comments right now. So they are related to maths, they're related to zoology, economics, and dentistry. So really what we're asking today is, oh wait, there we are. What extracurricular activities are good for Oxbridge? And when we're typically thinking about Oxbridge, you are thinking about people who read loads or who play grade 9 violin or who are, middle person is a squash champion. None of those are people who I would say I know many of. I wouldn't say many of those went to Oxford with me. There were some, but I would say that most people, when you're looking at applying to Oxford, none of those things are really that important. So if you are currently saying to your child, you need to be taking grade 7 in your violin right now because it's going to look great on your Oxbridge application, unfortunately, that is not something we're going to be talking about today, because extracurricular is very different to supracurricular. I know there's been some discussion around in the group about what supracurricular is. I'm going to help you out today and really discuss what you should be looking for if those are the subjects that you have just dropped into the comments that you are looking to apply for. So obviously it's great to be invited to speak to the Oxbridge University journey. I am really quite grateful to be here. Some of you might know me from the 11 plus journey, which is Saba's other group, and some of you have come from that group, so welcome if you are from there. If you are not, you are probably past the point of 11 plus by now, but if you're not and you have a child doing that, do hop over there as well. But we are focusing purely on Oxbridge today, and we're looking at those extracurriculars. So extracurricular versus supracurricular is something that comes up quite often at Oxbridge talks, and often it's a terminology that's thrown around, supracurriculars, but really what they mean is something that's related to what you want to study. So if I was to take one of the comments, so law, for example, or zoology, then you may think that there are some very obvious things that you would look at studying or you'd look at doing as an extracurricular. So say you want to do law, public speaking. Public speaking would be a great thing to have on a personal statement because it's related to law. Violin, less so. And with those top universities, Russell Group and Oxbridge, really what they care about is you and your relationship with your subject, not so much your achievements outside of your subject. So what I've done here is I've actually put down a number of interests or extracurriculars, supracurriculars that you might be looking for, and this is for biology. And to the my side of the slide, we've got the more traditional supracurriculars. So you might have done work experience in a biology lab. That's great. You might have read through a book that is particularly interesting. This is actually one that I put on my own personal statement when I applied to Oxford all those years ago. It's what encouraged me to read more about biochemistry. It's a specific genetics book. You might have read a magazine, and that magazine or BBC article had something to do with biology. But as we start to get further over, they start to become a bit more tenuous. It depends on how you're writing your statement as to whether it is of interest to you. So if you happen to have done a genetic test, 23andMe being one of those, that's definitely something that could go on a statement. I could go on a statement for biology, talking about maybe where your first interest in genetics comes from, might have come from family tree, might have come from family genetics. If you are a keen gardener, and you're looking at doing biology and you're looking at moving into something like ecology, again, that can be related. If you are very interested in animals, I know there's someone who put down that they're interested in zoology, then that, again, it's very relevant to your statement. If you are a keen footballer, but you also happen to show interest in the kind of physio side of football, and you're looking at how the body deals with an injury and how the body heals itself, that could be perfectly related to biology. And the last one I've got down there is actually video games, because I have written a statement with somebody who ended up looking at what I think they ended up, in Oxbridge for psychology, looking at video games and looking at the kind of positive effects, the negative effects, and how it drives a game mentality. So it's something you can get in if you have certain interests. But obviously, when you're looking at supracurriculars, you're wanting to try and bump up as many experiences to do with your subject as possible. So whether that is work experience, whether that is looking at a specific book or going to a specific lecture. But if that is something like having a footballing injury and then working it through with physio, that is also relevant. So what I wanted to make sure today was that you guys got a flavour of what extracurriculars we would be looking to put on a statement. So these are some for biology. And what I'm going to do, hopefully flip down, there we are. These are the ones for law. And you can see there's an overlap. You wouldn't be talking about the same things on your personal statement though. So again, we've got work experience. Somewhere like a courtroom would be amazing, but somewhere like family law would be interesting too. Likewise, so would be speaking to a lawyer. And that's something I'll pick up on in a moment. Reading a simple law book might be something that you would be doing, again, to feed your interest. It's all about feeding interest and feeding passion. You might be reading a law magazine. You might do Model United Nations. Now, again, I've stuck down the genetics, the 23andMe. And the reason that I've stuck this down, whole different edge to it. So if you're looking at law, you might be looking at the legality or the morality of finding out the genetics of a child. So if that's something you're really interested in, and that's something that got you interested in law, or something you've done recently, or your child has done recently in sixth form, then that might be something that's worth talking about on a statement. I've stuck down a picture of the French Revolution. Again, last year, we had a student who was looking at law, and in Oxford, you can do law and French. And part of what really sparked her interest was the study of the French Revolution and looking at how the French government deals with certain problems differently to the UK government. So that's something that you might decide that you're going to talk about. You might, if you're again, really interested in football, you might look at sports law. Again, if you're looking at video gaming, you could be looking at IP. So who really owns things that are created in games? So actually those supercurriculars, often when we think about Oxbridge and we think about Russell Group, you are thinking about just one end of it, that work experience, the reading often, and maybe something like Model UN. But don't forget the other stuff that you do and how you can link the whole thing together. So that's my first point that I wanted to make on extracurriculars. The second is, well, if I can't do, and this is often what happens, people say, okay, well, these are all the things that I do that are interesting, but I want to do more. I want to make my university application as competitive as possible. I thought these are some of the advice that I give to some of my students who are starting out. So considering something like projects, and a project can be absolutely anything, but it's around your interests. So I will take one of you guys from the comments. So let's take Maria. Maria is interested in math, or your child is interested in math, and say there isn't really great work experience around math. There's a bit of reading you can do, but maybe projects is something that fits in quite well. So with this, you might decide to look at the study of a famous mathematician. And that then might spark another idea. You might do some reading around that. Or you might look at a current math problem that is being worked out today. So these projects are just things that you are interested in and you build on them. So you might decide, okay, well, I'm really interested in the Fibonacci sequence and how the Fibonacci sequence sits in nature. I'm a scientist, so that's automatically where my mind goes with math. And if you're thinking, okay, right, I want to do this project, and this project's going to be based on math, and it's going to be based on the Fibonacci sequence, you might decide that you're going to write a paper on that, or you are going to go and try some problems around that and see, actually, well, I know the Fibonacci sequence exists in nature, but where does it go beyond that? So you might do some research around that. You might decide that you're going to do that as a presentation at a club at school. Or you might decide that you are going to reach out to somebody who you've read about, who is also looking into the Fibonacci sequence. So this one idea, this one project has then suddenly become a lot more. And then when you're looking at a personal statement, you will then have all of these experiences that you've done during this project. Something else that you might be looking at, TED Talks. So TED Talks, reading talks, there's a load of MOOCs out there. So things like Coursera, things like Eton Online, Harvard Online. They are all online courses. They're run by universities usually, and they are they're things of interest. So, for example, again, if you look at math, there will be a introduction to statistical modeling, or there might be something into decision math. And you might say, okay, well, this is an area that I'm interested in, a topic that I am interested in. So therefore, I'm going to go and I'm going to do that online lecture. I'm going to do that online stuff. So again, it's about feeding that interest and making sure that you've put that interest down and you have started to explore it. Because ultimately, when you've got a personal statement, or when you are interviewing a candidate, you want to see that they are interested, you want to see that they're passionate. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to feed this passion or explore this passion. So some of you who have commented below, we've got some that are very certain. So someone who says that they know that they want to take politics, philosophy, economics. But you might have some people who are sitting here going, I'm not entirely certain what I'm interested in, but I think it's somewhere around this area. And if that's you, then TED Talks are great, reading is great, and courses are great, because this is the point where you can start to find what you are very interested in. So for me, I studied my undergrad at Oxford in biochemistry, but the thing that really led me to that was I had a real passion for forensic science. So that was born out of a TV show, but it was something that I then went and followed. So I did a forensic science course a couple of days over a weekend down at Nottingham University, and I loved it. I thought forensic science is really, really interesting. And I found out more about genetics at that specific conference that I went to. And then I took that interest and I did some work experience. I did some projects based on genetics. I did some essays. I did a number of research pieces around that area. So it was something that for me sparked my interest and my idea. All right. So say you are interested in engineering. If you're interested in engineering, you can go and you can get some work experience within that. But it's quite hard at the moment to get that work experience. So again, you might consider watching a TED Talk on a specific area in engineering, or if you're into mechanical engineering, a specific problem and how that's been solved. You might want to do the next suggestion, which is starting a club. And now is a really great time to start a club. It sounds a little bit odd because we're all on lockdown, but we are also all quite connected. So it might be a good idea if you are in sixth form and you are really interested in something like medicine, medicine-related subjects, then to form a society at school where you all get together and you discuss something that you have found of interest within that. Or again, engineering, you find something that you are interested in. Starting a club is, again, it's showing your passion. You might then decide to take that club further and invite in people who happen to be in that area of interest, and they can join you on a Zoom call, and tell you a little bit more about their life. So if you were interested in medicine, for example, you would say, okay, meet every Thursday with other people who are interested in medicine, and you might pick an article out of, for example, the Nature magazines, or indeed a book that you might read. And then you may decide that you're going to discuss that. You might go one step further and you might invite the author of that paper and say, hey, I run a club in school, and it's a medicine related club, and we really liked your article in this magazine. Will you come on a Zoom call with us? And something like that is a bit unusual, but it really shows passion. Moving through essay competitions. So essay competitions are a brilliant way for some subjects. So if, for example, we've got law here, there will be law essay competitions. Our person who is interested in politics, philosophy, and economics, there are definitely politics and philosophy essay competitions. In fact, I think there's a couple that are run by certain colleges in Oxford and Cambridge. So these essay competitions, it's not important to win. it is important to do the project. It's about forming that essay, forming that idea. If you are looking at something more like medicine, there is one essay science competition. Alternatively, this year has allowed video in it, and that is run by Imperial College London, and I've stuck the link on the Oxbridge journey because it's one that I recommend for my students that are looking for sciences. I only prepare for sciences within my company. I take the sciences part, the biological sciences, and I recommend that most of my students do that essay competition. Now, the reason is not because I know that they're going to get gold or silver in terms of scoring. It is to go through the process of writing that essay. And sometimes we won't even use it in a personal statement, but sometimes we might drop it in. And what we're not doing is writing, when we write a personal statement, a whole list, but we want to have that list behind because it makes it easier to write a personal statement. So essay competitions are really worthwhile if you can find them and you're interested in doing them. There's no point doing them if you look at all the titles and go, there's not a single thing there that interests me. You might as well spend your time doing projects or starting a club. Okay, LinkedIn. Again, we are all currently sat down due to COVID, and that means a lot more of us are on LinkedIn. So people who have held interesting jobs within the field you're interested in are now available to talk. Previously, they had meetings and they had deadlines, and now we've still got those, but we're also online more of the time. So we are looking for people who are working in those fields, are looking for people to talk to. And sometimes just a 10-minute chat with a student who is interested in what you do as a job is a perfect distraction. So if you are sitting here and you're thinking, okay, I really want to do, I really want to do economics and management, but I know that it's going to be hard to find work experience for that because everyone who works within consultancy or within banking, they're going to be too busy. Don't forget that you have a LinkedIn network, or that your friends have a LinkedIn network, or that you have a friend network, and there will be someone within that who has a job that is related to the field that you are interested in. And again, as a student, you can contact them, say, "Hi, can I chat to you for 10 minutes and just ask you a couple of questions about your job or about university?" And have a chat to them and ask them what's the most interesting thing that they like doing, or what is the most annoying thing, or what do they wish that they had done before they went to university, and ask them if they've got a project for you. Is there something that you think is really interesting within the field of economics that I could go and do some research into? And they might tell you something that then could feed into a project, and that project could then cause you to start a club. And then what you're doing is you're proving that passion. That's what they want to see, is passion above everything else. Not above grades, but pretty much above other things. And then the other thing is virtual internships. Harder to get, but they are out there for certain careers. And the good thing about some of these other methods, so projects, clubs, LinkedIn, competitions, is it might open the door to a virtual internship or to an internship later in the future. So if you have reached out to somebody and you have asked them a question, you've got 10 minutes of their time and they've talked to you and you've really gotten on with them well, then follow up with the email and ask them if there's a chance that you could go and shadow them for a day when COVID is over. So try and keep that door open so that you can keep showing that passion. Okay. All right, someone saying, didn't think about opening a LinkedIn account. It's a great way, but also don't forget that you've got family and friends as well. So do try and reach out your network. And indeed, I think the Oxbridge journey would be a place to if you need a contact and someone else happens to have one, you're looking for different subjects or you're looking at the same subject, again, that 10-minute talk, it would be great to see some of that, some of those connections being made so that we can help our young people to really kind of fly. Okay. So if you are now thinking, okay, right, these are all the things that I need to do. And actually there's quite a lot of it. But there's loads of other things that we've done. We've done museum visits, or we have done a project before, but we just haven't necessarily thought about it. What I would do is, if you are in sixth form, or your child is in sixth form, and you're looking at Oxbridge or you're looking at Russell Group, get yourself a Google Doc and sit down with them. Sit down if you're a student with your mum or dad, and go through all the things that you have done that is related to your passion, to your areas of interest. And if you have children who are a little bit younger, so again, with some of my students, they start thinking about Oxbridge when they're about 13. So if you are one of those, you know that your child is going to be aiming high, they're going to be looking for medicine, they're going to be looking to Oxbridge, then start that right now. And think about any photographs you've got, any scrapbooks you've got, and every time that they do something that is related, get them to write or indeed record a couple of sentences about why they found it interesting. So if you start to think about all of the ways that you have been exposed to this specific subject, so let's take medicine related subjects, and think back to people that you had come into school. So did they have a speaker? Do you have a speaker who came in who just happened to have the best talk and happened to be medicine related? Maybe they were a neuroscientist and you were like, wow, this is amazing. I never realized that this was a job. I really want to do that. Or did you go and visit a museum? So there's an exhibition down in London called Bodyworks, and it's got all of the blood vessels of somebody, and it's encased in plastic. It's a really fascinating exhibition. Again, did you go and see that? And can you remember how you felt at the time and what it inspired you to do? Did you read in the newspaper about, when I was younger, I read about glow-in-the-dark mice, something that appeared in the Metro one day. And I had this little book that I kept full of interesting articles, and most of them were just bump, but this one was really interesting to me, and I actually stuck it up on my wall, and it had these glow-in-the-dark mice or glow-in-the-dark cats, and that went in my personal statement because it was something that I suddenly became really interested in. So all of these ideas, try and keep track of them, so that you know when you go back to write a statement. And when we go back and write a statement, we're typically doing it a couple of months before the deadline, 15th of October. And it's sometimes quite hard to think of all the things that you've done. And I know that when I write personal statements, when my tutors write personal statements with students, what we like to do is get all of the evidence that we can. So all the things you've ever done that have shown passion for that subject. We might only end up using 3 of them or 5 of them, but we've got this great big pool to think about. So if you have documented it and you can say to me, here's this list of all the things that I've done that are related to medicine, then that makes your life a lot easier when you're writing that personal statement. So that personal statement will draw off of, not all of them, because it's not going to be a list, but it will draw off of those extracurricular activities, what we'd call supracurricular activities, that are related to your subject. I know there was somebody in here who calls them super related curricular activities. I think that's what I want to call them from now on. Okay, because they are. Right. Why am I talking to you in January about this? Okay, I've already said, personal statement goes in October. So why do we need to be thinking about it in January when we've got months and months? The top one's the reason, because passion wasn't developed in the summer. If you want to show a top university that you are really passionate about your subject, having a list of things you did in summer isn't going to cut it, because that's too recent. What that says is, I finished my ASs, or I finished school, and I thought that I probably needed to get some evidence to back up my personal statement. So I went out and I did it. And actually, that's not passion. That is being forced to do so. So you want to be starting early. And for us, we say 12 to 18 months because it really allows you to be able to hone in on your interests. But 6 to 9 is where you can start collecting all of that data. Other thing, essay competitions have deadlines. So previously, I mentioned that there's a competition that I recommend for my biology, biochemistry students, which is run by Imperial. Now, that essay competition has a deadline, and that deadline is in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. It's in February. So there's no point in summer before writing your personal statement going, oh, I should do an essay, because they've gone. And you can't prove that. You can't write that essay, develop that passion, go away and read, because it's not there anymore. So you want to start early so that you can meet as many things, meet as many competitions, visit as many places, do as many of those online lectures as possible. As I said, a statement needs to tell a story, and it can't tell the story, or it rarely can tell the story of a few months ago I became interested in. Really what you want is as a looking through a personal statement, you want to see that this person has had a passion, and then they followed that passion, and then they have gone and they've found out about something else, and then they've researched that, and then they've spoken to somebody. Because ultimately what that says is you're going to walk into a lecture hall, you're going to listen to me speak, and then you're going to go away and do something about it. Because that's ultimately what Oxford and Cambridge want. They want you to be able to go away and to develop that interest and to work on that interest and to come back to them and say, but what about this? That's the whole point of the tutorial system, is to get your passion as a tutor across to students, and for students to go and question you, and for you to develop, for the students to develop the kind of the inquisitiveness and be able to problem solve and go away and really research into very, very tiny topics, but topics that they are really, truly passionate about. Why start now? Cherry picking, as I said before, the ability to be able to cherry pick. So if you have this long list of things that you've done, and you might say, some of them aren't that good, or some of them are a bit old, that's fine, because we can get rid of those. And then you can focus on writing that statement for a very, very specific area. So you can say, not only am I interested in law, but I am interested in human rights law, and here's the person that I heard speak about it, and here's the book that I read about it, and here is the person that I spoke to about it, and here's a project that they set me about it. And you can focus really well onto that area. You might use a couple of areas to develop your interest, but you have some great stories around it. You've been able to cherry pick from your list of experiences. And of course, you want to start now, because then you've got time to improve. So if you started in summer, gaining some evidence, gaining some extracurriculars or supercurriculars, you wouldn't be that great at it. And you might do some reading, but it might not be exactly what you're interested in. Or you might do some work experience, but it's not, again, in the right kind of place. You maybe won't get as much out of it. Whereas if you've had the time to think about it, you've had the time to work on it. You don't just do the experience, but you do the experience, and then what it teaches you is what you want to go away and look at. It's not a list. So when you're writing a statement, you are looking at stories. You're looking at being able to take something that you learned in an experience, work experience, and to move and to recommend beyond. So say that you did a medicine style work experience, maybe you shadowed somebody in a hospital, you might then take something that you saw in medical ethics. So you saw a problem happening, you saw how to broach death with a patient's family. You might then decide, I'm going to go further, I'm going to improve on my knowledge, and I'm going to read some medical ethics. That's not something you can do when you're rushing against time. So that's why we'd recommend really starting in January. Well, starting a little bit before as well. Okay, this is a question that I've been asked by a couple of people on the group. At the moment, there's no work experience. And for places like medicine-related subjects, it can be annoying, because often what they're saying is we want to see some form of work experience. And what the reason that they are saying that is just because they want to see the passion, but they also want to see that you've considered the career, and it's an important part. At the moment, there's no medicine work experience that I know of. I mean, Fraser, who is also in this group, may well be able to comment if there is something elsewhere. But as far as I'm aware, there's nothing in the hospital, basically due to the situation. But there are alternatives. So I've spoken to a couple of members about. I know that there's a number when we start looking at medicine of doing some volunteering in nursing homes. And again, that's something that you're restricted in at the moment, but you're not restricted on picking up the phone and asking the nursing home, is there a person that I can speak to? So is there an elderly resident who I can talk to once a week, who maybe, is really feeling lonely and needs someone to speak to, and maybe their family doesn't phone them that often? Or is there someone that I can write to? And I can strike up a friendship and I can write to them, and maybe when we're not in lockdown we can visit and I can start to do some parts around there. But again, it's about opening the doors and finding some alternatives, speaking to people, as I said before, on LinkedIn. So reaching out to, if you're interested in medicine, someone who maybe has just qualified as a doctor. And if someone's just qualified as a doctor, asking them, what's the hardest thing that you have found so far? What's it like really working as a junior doctor now? And finding that finding that idea of speaking to people. Perfect. GP practices, agreed. And being able to ask them about their experiences. Things like GP practices, where you're not straight in a hospital. Again, there tends to be some age restrictions, I know, with certain ones of those. So again, it's all about, if you can't get it the first time, then open the door and have a conversation. So if they say, no, there's absolutely no way that we can have you for this experience, okay, well, can I speak to one of your GPs? Have a conversation with them on the phone. Can I have 10 minutes of their time? And then once you've had that conversation, follow it up with an email. It was wonderful speaking with you, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I'd love to come and visit you when available. So there are different things that are you can do just to try and open that door. And if you're looking at law, again, law court experience can be hard to get, but you may well find that there is someone who can speak to you. And from speaking to you, you can then get some suggestions on where you might meet them for a coffee once this is over. So again, all these kind of alternatives that you can find. I think we've got, perfect. We've got some bits down here as well for people who are interested in medicine. Do take a look in the comments. I know that there's this type of parts that are just up here. We've got some online courses. Perfect. Chelsea and Westminster have some online courses. Brilliant. So always thinking about the alternatives. If you can't get the one thing that you really want, then go around it. So I know somebody a couple of years ago helped out somebody who really wanted to work in pathology, and there's an age restriction for doing any kind of work experience in a mortuary. It's not something that is done, and they really, that's what the route that they wanted to go down. So that is what they wanted to study medicine at university, because this was something that they were interested in. But ultimately, the course that they were looking for, medicine, had a lot more other things that they could look at doing. So yes, they weren't able to do the exact type of experience they wanted, and say you are interested in cardiology, but there isn't that type of experience that you can get in a hospital. Think about alternatives. Think about other places and the lessons you can learn from them. Because ultimately, when you're writing a statement, you want to be talking about the lessons that you learn, the things you discovered from that. So yes, maybe you didn't go and do cardiology, but you're really interested in it. But did you see something on your rounds that was interesting and maybe linked to that? So did you see someone giving out warfarin? And did you then go away and look up what warfarin does? And did you then go and ask your chemistry teacher about it and look at the chemical structure of it? That is then an interesting story, not around the experience of following a cardiologist, but something that is then related to that area of expertise. So warfarin is used as a blood thinner. And it's typically given to people who have heart attacks. So therefore, you might find that there's an interesting story to write around that. If you are listening to this either live or you're listening to this on catch up and you're thinking, my child is only 13, 14, and they've started to say that they're interested in Oxford or Cambridge or Russell groups or medicine, and I don't know what to do really to nurture their interests. As I said, I work with a number of students who are of that age, and they're quite passionate individuals. They're really looking at Oxbridge, and part of what we do is we look at this project-based learning. So it's very similar to sixth form, but we look at something that they're interested in, like dinosaurs. So a couple of years ago, I was in China with Quintessentially Group, working with their Asian clients out there, and advising them on Oxbridge entry. And I actually had somebody who came up who said, my son is 3. I would say that is too young. but for students who are maybe 11 to 13, start to look at projects of what they're interested in. So if they are passionate about dinosaurs, then do some research into dinosaurs and do some research into paleontologists, and go to, when you can, the Natural History Museum and look at how do people age bones, and really feed those interests. Really feed them, so that they have this whole book about dinosaurs that they have researched and that they understand. And they might find somewhere along that they're not actually interested in dinosaurs anymore. They're really interested in bones. And we're going to go start and do another project all about bones and all about x-rays and about the age of things. Maybe then they're interested in anthropology. They're interested in how societies came about. But follow those interests. And if your child is a bit younger, do document those projects as they go through. So what did they learn out of them? What was the thing they found the most interesting? Get them to record that, because when they start firming up their choices, and a lot of you gave me some really nice specific choices at the start of university courses that you're looking at. If you are not certain, this project-based style of learning, where you go into something that you're interested in and then find something else if you're related to that, is a really great way of discovering interest. And actually, it's often what we're doing at the moment with some of our GCSE students, who last year, when GCSE students couldn't take their exams, we moved to a project style of learning, and that really helped them to firm up some of the university choices. So we started to look at what are you interested in, and how many different angles can you take it from. So can you look at, if you're interested in how society came about, so what brought us to this point now, you can look at it from a biological point of view. You can look at it from a geographical point of view. You can look at it from an anthropological point of view. So there's loads of different ways that you can look at a question, but it's about being driven by what your child is interested in. If your child is too young and they don't know what they want to do, encourage them to push themselves and really to aim high. As we'd said, for Oxford and Cambridge, grades are important. They are the initial hurdle. So great GCSEs, great predicted A levels. Those are the pretty much the first thing that an interviewer will look for. There are very few exceptions, but there are exceptions of when people haven't achieved the grades, but they are very rare, and there is usually a reason behind it. So I went to university with somebody who studied history but didn't take history as an A-level. And she had shown her passion for history. She'd actually taken a year out, and she had worked as a tour guide in one of the big London museums. And she she had written pieces for Oxford when she applied, and they were on her very specific area of interest, and it was very clear that she absolutely loved history, but she made a mistake when she didn't take it for A-level. So she'd taken that year out, she'd done the extra work, she hadn't retaken a GCSE, hadn't retaken an A-level, but she had shown that passion, and therefore she took the history aptitude test, she scored very highly in it, and she scored very highly in interview. But that is an exception to the rule, that is not the rule. So most people who are applying have high GCSE grades and high predicted A-levels. So if your child is thinking about Oxbridge, then they need to have that collection of good grades, and especially important in the ones that they are interested in. So if your child is looking at medicine, you are looking at making sure that the sciences and the math is particularly high. Reading and watching, and really just exploring interests. So the more exploration that you can do if your child is quite young, the easier it's going to be, because as they get older, the more evidence that you're going to have. Okay, so I think there we are. That brings us to the end of this first part. I said I was going to do a couple of videos, a couple of lives. One of the ones that I know that there's been a lot of questions about, which is what's different between Oxford and Cambridge. And I know that there were some conversations earlier this week about pooling. And so the next thing that we're going to be doing is a speech or a live on what the differences between that are. What I am happy to do is, if you have any specific questions, do just drop them down in the comments. And I know that there are some moderators who are here as well. I know that Sabra is here, and hopefully can, if I miss anything, can give me a prod. So what have we got? Will children doing Lambda help towards university points? Yes, Seema, but they shouldn't need to. So really, if you're taking standard GCSEs and standard A-levels, you shouldn't need to be doing university points in any other way. So you can score additional points through doing dance, through doing drama, through a very high grade, like a grade 7 in music or a diploma. But ultimately, that the points that are required by Russell Groups or by Oxford and Cambridge is enough from getting good GCSEs and good A-levels. So there should be no need. Something like Lambda, however, I would recommend if you're looking at something like law, because again, it's a public speaking. You can probably link some of that in. If you are looking at doing drama, you're looking at doing the arts, then obviously that would be something. And also, if you enjoy it, then do it. Not everything has to be a supercurricular. If you really like doing Lambda and it's something that you feel pride in and you really like doing, then carry on doing it. Okay. How would I advise older students that don't know what they want to go on to? So a year 12 student who's tried lots of different projects, enjoys lots of different things. Okay, it's a hard one. What we do, and I can only say on what really I do and what my company does, is we look at mentors at that point. So I have a student who isn't certain on whether she wants to do biology, medicine, or biochemistry. So what she's doing is she's currently speaking with people who either lecture or do that job. And what they're doing is we're providing her with those experts or with those links so that she can ask as many questions as possible. So they are being very, very honest about, for example, medicine takes a lot longer and it is a very stressful career, but it's also an incredibly rewarding career. So they are giving her both options and really talking about what it is to do their job in a day-to-day life. And that is something that we try to do if they are uncertain. So if we're uncertain, we look a little stage beyond. So we will say, okay, you're interested in law. That possibly means that you're interested in becoming a lawyer. Here's an example of someone who does that. And here's an example of someone who is currently studying it. So we have mentors who are currently studying at Oxford and Cambridge, And for our students who are a little bit uncertain, or they're not certain on whether they want to apply to Oxbridge, or they're not certain on their course, they will meet with our mentors. Our mentors will tell them what it is like doing that course, what it is like applying for jobs. And then if we've got one who does a job that they're interested in, they'll tell them about their day-to-day life. Other essay competitions for things like economics, type it into Google. So it's if you type in something like economics essay competition sixth form, then you'll probably find there's some. And I know that there is definitely I'm going to do it right now, economics essay competition. And yeah, it throws up a number of suggestions so that we would be looking at. So it really would be about giving that a Google. And if you can't find anything, I will drop a message just below the comment when I'm finished with a link of previous essay competitions that I know of. Is Imperial, again, the Imperial essay link is on the Oxbridge journey. I think the majority of them at the moment are COVID related, so they're more biochemistry, but do take a look at it. I think there's a science journalism one in there at some point, which is kind of interesting. So do take a look, and they are usually quite broad. So you can often write about something that you're interested in. So try and think of a way that it can link. It's all about linking. Okay. Going to apply during a gap year. 2020 entry with achieved grades. Okay. So for this person who is looking to apply during a gap year, I would recommend applying before the gap year. So you said 2022 entry, I would apply for deferred. And in that gap year, do something that is related to your subject. So if that is work experience, if that is doing a project, if that could be, if you are interested in math, which is a particularly hard one to find work experience in, then it might be going in and speaking, you've organized to go and visit another university in a different country and speak to them about their math. So that's something that a friend of mine who's now a lecturer down at Oxford did during her gap year. She applied for math. She's now a math lecturer and she absolutely loves it. So during her gap year, she went off and she did some teaching, she did some snorkeling, but she also went and visited a math lecturer that she particularly had watched some lectures on and found fascinating, and generally dropped in and had a coffee with him and went to a couple of his lectures. So it's something that is unique, but something that again shows that passion. It's all about passion. Here we are. Okay. How feasible is medicine at a top UK uni with deferred entry? You know what? I am going to ask Fraser for that because I know that she is around and she will tell us regarding the deferral. I know mostly biology, chemistry. I actually refer to her for quite a lot of the medicine. So I don't do medicine. I have a tutor who deals with medicine, but I'm hoping that Fraser will be able to help you. If not, I'm going to tag her and I'll also go and contact the medicine tutor that I use. Is there anybody else? Okay, there we are. There. Yes, I've spoken to Sheena about her daughter before. Sheena, I've spoken to you, and yeah, she's doing this is again another way to show passion. Sheena's daughter is doing a textiles AS, which is or has done a textiles AS, sorry, and that's something she did actually during her GCSEs, which again shows a passion in a specific area. So if you can look at doing something early, then again that is worth looking at for math. If you're doing further math, then again it shows that passion, it shows that ability to be able to go beyond. There we are. GCSE judgment in some subjects, not good enough. It depends. So it depends on what the subjects are. So if you're achieving 6s/7s and you are looking at applying to Oxford for law or medicine, or you are looking at applying for English and that 6 or 7 is in a humanities, no, it's not really high enough. If you are saying that 6/7 is in English, but you're looking at applying for a pure math degree, then maybe. It depends on what the other ones are. So one of the things that we do at the start is look at all of the GCSEs, and I would say I'm quite honest with whether I think it's worth going forward. So if I have a student who comes to me and they have several 6s or 7s, it's not a particularly high chance, because you've not got the initial hurdle. Now, if there's a reason for that, so you have recently come to the UK to study, or you took your GCSEs during a time that you got extenuating circumstances, or that there's something that is unusual about it, then that might be something that we'd look at. But traditionally, you're looking at most 8s and 9s, and you are looking at, if you've got a 7 or a 6, then it tends to be in one subject, and it's not the one that you're looking at studying. So it's very dependent. The other time that I have seen 6s and 7s are when somebody has seen a massive difference, and they may have changed schooling systems or changed schools in between. So 6s and 7s were a very good grade at your previous school, and then you moved for sixth form, and now you're achieving A levels. And in that case, often a student will take a gap year and will fill that with experience. But it is quite a tough apply if you have a large number of 6s and 7s. There we are. Okay. So I know it's getting to about an hour, and I did come on a little bit late due to all those sound issues. Here we are. Does Oxbridge? I will carry on answering questions, but then I will leave this be. So does Oxbridge differentiate between 8s and 9s? There's not a prescriptive list. There is a general advice that is given, and it is one of a number of things that they look at. So there will be, basically in terms of evidence, there will be GCSEs, A levels, you look at a head teacher's report, you look at personal statements, and then you look at this thing called contextual data. So it depends on where the student goes to school, and also where they live, and where they lived during GCSEs, and where they went to school during GCSEs. And that all gets ranked and sorted and statistically analysed, and then there's a cut-off point. And sometimes if you take exams, pre-test exams, or for Cambridge, if you provide pre-work, so human sciences does that, then that features into that as well. So once they've done all of that analysis, then they make a cutoff. So the difference between 8s and 9s isn't really as important as some of the other stuff. So we want to get the ducks as much in the row as possible. But if you are achieving if you've got 10 GCSEs and you have come out with most 8s and 9s, then that is something that's definitely worth applying. If you have come out with 2 8s and 9s and the rest are 6s, then it's not. So it's not that there's a tick list, and it's not that everybody who gets 9s gets in, because that's not the way that it's looked at. They do that pre-ranking. They'll often look at the admissions tests, and some admissions tests are given more weighting than others. And then the interviews as well. The interviews tend to come up as the second step. Perfect. Perfect. There's an additional tip regarding medicine down there. All right, I'm starting to lose my voice. So what I'm going to do is I am going to end the live there. I want to say again, thanks very much, Saba, for letting me come on, and apologies, guys, for the technical issues that we had right at the start. I will be around on the Oxbridge University journey. I am here, and I'm available to answer questions and do everything. But I'm going to close this down now, and thanks for tuning in. And as I said, next in the series, we'll be looking at what those differences are when we're looking at Oxford, when we're looking at Cambridge, and why you don't apply to both. All right, then. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.